George Washington had a spy who sent him secret messages by hanging out her laundry, just plain doing her laundry. There was a black petticoat on the line. A few handkerchiefs were kind of spread here and there. And to anybody walking past, it just looked like it was laundry day. It was wash day. She was just putting her laundry out to dry. But to the people who knew what was going on and knew the code, it was an order: where to land a boat, which cove, and who were they supposed to meet when they got there. This is the spy ring that helped win the American Revolution. And the British actually never caught on to any of them, not a single one of them throughout the entire time. In fact, nobody actually even figured out who the lead spy really was for 150 years after the Revolutionary War ended. So how does a handful of farmers and shopkeepers and ordinary people outspy the entire British government, the most powerful army on earth? Part of the answer is a secret weapon. They had invisible ink. And the guy who invented it, this is pretty cool, he was the brother of one of the founding fathers. Spying, as it turns out, was actually a family trait of theirs. Washington, he needed spies that were pros. He also needed a pattern and a system. So in 1778, he hands this all to a 24-year-old cavalry officer named Benjamin Talmadge. And Talmadge builds something nobody had really seen in America at this point: a relay, a chain of ordinary people moving secrets out of occupied New York, all the way to Washington's desk. Let's take Abraham Woodhull, for instance. He's a farmer in Setauket, and he's a very, very nervous guy. He's terrified of getting caught the whole time. His code name was Samuel Culper Sr. Then there's the real catch. This is kind of the one I alluded to earlier: a New York City merchant named Robert Townsend. You've probably heard that name before. His name in the spy ring was Culper Jr. He had perfect cover. He runs a shop, also writes a little bit for a paper, so nobody really thinks that, he's doing anything weird by chatting it up with British officers or talking to them. He just looks like he's nosy and he's trying to get copy for his next story. Then there's Caleb Brewster. He runs whaleboats across the Sound. This is the getaway driver, except it's not a car and he wasn't driving, it's a boat. And he enjoys the danger, maybe a little bit too much. And Austin Rowe, a tavern keeper, rides 50 plus miles in the city and back carrying these messages in his boot on horseback. Here's the genius part about the whole thing: it was the route. Townsend gathers it in the city. Rowe puts it in a boot, and then he rides it. It gets stashed, sometimes in a box in Woodhull's field, and then Anna signals, and Brewster then rows it across and gives it to Washington. Not a single person in the ring sees the entire chain throughout the whole thing. So if one of them got caught, the others would be safe. And for 1780, this is spycraft at its highest elite level. But there's still a problem. How do you move secret messages through a city full of British troops without it reading like a secret or concealing it if something gets caught? How would they be able to not be able to decode what was in the message? Well, they had two tricks that were developed. One was a number code. Talmadge built a code book. Every name and word had a number related to it. Washington, for instance, was 711. So an intercepted letter just looks like a math worksheet to a lunatic. And the second one is the secret weapon that I talked to you about a little bit earlier. It was invisible ink. They called this sympathetic stain, and it worked something like this. You wrote a boring letter, say, "Hey, Aunt Susie, the dog is doing great. The weather is fine here. We're all having a great time. Hope you can come out." But in between those lines, in invisible ink, you write the real message. The ink was a little different than other invisible inks at the time. Previously, you could bring out invisible inks with things like heat, but this particular ink needed a special chemical to bring it out so it could be read. That ink didn't come from some military base or a chemical plant. It actually came from a doctor. Sir James J., physician trained in Edinburgh, knighted in England, and quietly one of the most useful men in American intelligence at the time, because he handed the revolutionary cause this way to be able to talk in those spaces between the lines and not be able to get caught and keep the secret. Now, if the name J of James J isn't ringing a bell, his little brother, John, was he was kind of a big deal in the Revolution. By the way, he was also the first Chief Justice of the United States. He was that guy. This is his older brother. The older brother is the one that actually developed the invisible ink. While the ring was running secrets out of New York, somebody had to stop the British spies from running them in. And in New York, early in the war, that job actually landed on John Jay. He actually chaired the committee that hunted loyalist plots, detaining suspects, intercepting letters, running down conspiracies. What a perfect job for him to be on Washington's spies. People literally called him the father of American counterintelligence. The question comes down to, does all of this spying and invisible ink and espionage actually do anything for the revolution? The answer is yes, of course it did. The growth of Washington as a spy ring leader, it shines here. He is well developed at this point and understands what to do. So what he does is he fakes a set of battle plans for an attack on New York, and he lets the British find the plans. Well, the British panic. They pull troops back to defend the city that was going to be attacked, and they call off the strike on the French. The French survive, and they're completely untouched. Washington's plan and the way he's developed his spy techniques just became brilliant. And this is vitally important to the story because that French army that we just got done talking about getting saved, they marched south with Washington a year later to a little tobacco port called Yorktown. This war ran on secrets, and most of the people keeping them never got a statue or any awards or anything because the reality is we didn't even know who they were. So how could we honor them if we don't know who they are? But the biggest secret keeper of all, well, you haven't met him yet. There's a spy coming in the finale, an enslaved man who walks straight into a British general's camp, feeds him exactly the wrong information at the right time, and helps spring a trap that ends the war. His name, though, sadly barely made the books, but I'm going to try to fix that in part 4. Like and subscribe for more content like this. I do history stuff every week. I'm your host, James Coulon, and as always, I wish you a great day, a pleasant evening, and a wonderful week ahead. Thank you.